Okay, I think it's kicking in now. Okay. All right. And I'll just take 1 second here to confirm that the broadcast is going through on YouTube and we are good to go. Perfect. All right. Thank you everyone so much for joining us once again for episode 3 of our Deepening Connections with the Laws of Creation. My name is Brendon, filling in for Neil on behalf of Portal to Ascension today. And for this event, we have Iain joining us once again to be able to dive a little bit deeper this time to continue to deepen the connection, as we say. And today's episode is all about from core to the now, laws of compensation and attraction. So I'll give Iain the microphone here and we'll just kind of chit chat for a second. And then Iain's got a presentation lined up. Again, if you guys haven't already, please go back and check out episodes 1 and 2 of the series for more of the inspiration and insight there. And Iain, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us and happy to be able to have you here. Oh, just double check microphone. Perfect. There we go.
Okay.
Welcome back.
So, no, it's just really great to be here. It's great to be back. It's actually great to do this outside from my home instead. I've been traveling the last few times, and it's really cool to see some individuals showing up that have been here for the whole series, and that's always really exciting because we've spread these things out quite a bit. And we did that by design, but there's going to be some people that kind of don't come back as a result. But to see people continuing on this and playing with this is really awesome. So thank you for everybody that's here and continuing to show up. It's really cool. And I invite you all to post any questions you might have here right in the beginning, and then I'll try to weave them in, or maybe we'll even spend a little bit of time on them before we really get rolling in. One thing that I wanted to mention was that I feel like, the first 2 were a lot of kind of me delivering a lot of content and just kind of throwing it out there and just in that direction. And I really would like to make this more interactive. So that means anybody that's watching here as an attendee, please drop in some comments. Tell us where you are so far. Did you watch the first 2? And how's it impacted you? Tell us something here that we can, bring to life for others as well. So, but how have you been, bud? It's been a while.
It's been a while, man. Yeah, keeping busy, ready for the start of we're moving into Leo season now, so we got some pretty cool energies to work with, and just excited to just kind of again be as much as I'm here to just kind of help co-host, I'm here to learn equally as much as the rest of the viewers. So again, I'm sure Iain will give us a little bit of an introduction in terms of what to expect, but just for everyone here, take some notes. Just kind of like set aside the next like couple hours to really just make this about you being able to integrate this knowledge even further in ways that, again, are going to be able to help you not only understand more about the universe, but also be able to understand more about your potential within it. So yeah, things have been flowing as always. And Iain, if you want me to kind of do any more of an introduction, just let me know. But other than that, we can pass it over to you and I'll let you kind of steer the ship here.
No, I think that's great. I might have a question here because I see a hand up and I don't know how to look at that.
Let me take a second here. Because we're Jude, if you have a question, please feel free to leave it into the chat. For everyone here, if you guys can just confirm that the comments are working in the chat, it should be coming through, but please go ahead.
I have to allow them to talk.
Oh,
no,
is that how?
Do that?
Even for typing, is that how it works? I think that's more so just for voice. That's more so just for
audio.
I
just screwed something up, guys. I just went to David there. I don't know how to remove him from the screen. Sorry about that. Maybe you know how to do that.
No worries. But yeah, just any questions and everything, go ahead and you guys can leave that into the chat in Zoom, and also again for the YouTube as well. Please go ahead and leave any comments and just again any questions as well. And Iain, if you're good to go, we'll pass it over to you. And again, I'll just kind of be here in the audience taking notes as well. And thank you again, everyone, for joining. And reminder, you can connect with Iain through the links in the info for this video. You can find him on Instagram at My Evolved Life. Also, he has a personal profile at Iain Grae, and you can find his transformational courses on his Sam card. And again, we have the link for that in the info for this video, and we'll post it throughout the event as well. So Iain, with that said, are you good to go? I'll pass it over to you.
Great. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, man.
All right, so we're going to share this screen. Boom. Boom, there it is. There it is, guys. So you guys, just trying to see what you guys are seeing. All right, so you guys are all set. All right, so before we even get in here, I mentioned a little bit about just dropping in some comments, and this is our third session together, and I would like to be able to share a little bit more about who I am and where I'm coming from and why I'm sharing this with you guys, because it connects to why we do this all anyway. And I think it would be remiss to not actually look at what my life circumstances are and how I got to where I am. But before I start just talking about what I think you might want to hear, I would much rather have you drop in any comments, any questions about me, or anything specifically about the laws and why you do that. Oh, Jude's telling me the chat is disabled, so I don't know if you can fix that.
Yeah, I'm seeing that now. I'm gonna look into that, and we'll get it working as soon as we can. Thank you, Jude, for letting us know.
Thank you so much. Yeah. So, all right, and if we get that resolved, if you want to just pause me, because then I'll come back to any questions and we'll let everybody know to drop them in. So figures when I'm like, I want to be more engaging and talk to everybody on the other side, that there's something we got to fix first. So let's just talk about, like, what am I talking about, this core to the now? Like, what do I really mean by this phrase? And what I'm gonna try to say in another way, right? So if we think of the source, our source of all of that we are, that divine oneness, that energy that drives us and powers us. In this case, that's what I'm talking about when I'm saying the core. Like, we just go into our absolute core beingness of who we are from the source. There's that aspect of us that lives beyond the physical dimension, and it's in the physical dimension, but it's really beyond it as well, and we can experience it on this spiritual or some kind of meta plane. And when I talk about the now, I'm talking about this experience of separateness that we are having in the human experience. So when we look at these 7 laws, they kind of create like almost a circular reference where they're so dependent on each other. It's from that first law of divine oneness that we talk about, to the law of attraction, where it binds everything to manifest, to bring stuff from the spiritual into the physical, whether it's an actual thing like a lighter or a phone or something like that, or it's a certain experience that we want to have. So if we know these 7 laws and we work them together and see how that functions together in our inner world, and then do that when we're out doing physical activity, we're going to actually have the manifestation we desire. But if something's broken along that link, the results that we get aren't going to be what we want. And if the foundation is rocky or not rocky, on sand, then even if we get what we want, we won't be able to sustain it. So the idea of this today is really to we're going to look at everything, just quick recap through things, and then we're going to tack on the next 2 laws, and then we're going to actually link it together and do some experiential stuff that you'll be able to process this and experience exactly what I'm talking about from a visualization perspective. So I'm really excited to have this do this with you guys. One more key thing that I've really it's been driving home for me over the last few weeks is the difference, again, between man's law and God's law, right? And when we're talking here, we're talking about a law that happens in natural order. So we want to be in this harmonious experience. And when we live in this natural order, we'll have that flow in our life. Whereas when we look at what man's law, whether it's for business or criminals, it definitely has some reflections of what universal law may be. And that's kind of what it got based on. But later, as people with ego and power, they started manipulating man's law. So when we look at the Bible, for example, if you read the Bible, they talk a lot about the way of Caesar or the way of the world. And that's what they're talking about, the laws that man creates that are not in line with the natural law. Man doesn't have to create law. This law actually exists. And when we actually use these 7 laws to form our creation, what actually is going to happen is the societal issues that we're trying to prevent with all these other laws, those things will actually just go away. Because if people are behaving in this manner and have access to this way of creation and connection, their behaviors are going to be reflective of this divine source. So we're not going to like go connect to our core and go rob a bank, right? We're more likely to connect to our core and kind of take some inspired action from some kind of place of grace. So that's what we're looking for here. And as we do this, it's going to not just affect our own lives and what happens for us in just in our own realities, but it seems to kind of wear off the people in our lives, and they start to kind of catch on, and we can kind of see where they're coming from in greater perspectives, and have more empathy to the situation and relate in ways and communicate in ways that we couldn't have before because of the same methodology. So we're going to jump into that today. That's why we're doing this. That's why I like doing this, because it proves my life and my flow. So today what we're going to do is actually link those first 7 laws together, and that's going to unify our perception of oneness with all that is, right? The oneness of all that is with our experience that's happening in the world, right? So that oneness experience, if you sit and meditate right now, I think probably all of you have done this, probably meditated at some point if you're here, you've gotten to that place. You've probably gotten to that place where you feel that divine connection, like boom, bliss state, right? But then you go out into the world and it happens, life happens, things happen, and the world's like happening around us, right? But this is actually a way that we can link our physical reality more clearly with the spiritual source of how we're creating this reality, because we're looking at these 4 different steps that happen that are like a path. We can see it much more clearly. And when that happens, a strange thing happens. We no longer can avoid taking responsibility for things, because we start to see how we're responsibility to creating our reality based on our thoughts and our emotions and intentions. And a lot of you that are here today probably already know this, right? So we're just, if that's where you are, we're refining skills. If this is brand new for you, that's great too. And if you've done this forever, you know what, maybe there's still something deeper that you can get out of it. So you're here, so let's make the most of it. So what ends up happening is we start to clearly see how erroneous our thinking might be, and how that erroneous thinking causes unnecessary strife and conflict in our own lives and the lives of people around us. And when we have this awareness, it just makes it easier for us to drop those judgments around things. And instead we relate, as I was mentioning earlier, and connect more intimately with ourselves, our source, and the ones we love so much. So get ready for some opening today. That's what this is really about, more deepening, opening. No matter how open you are, you can be more so. And if you're closed off, you're going to probably hate me for this, but also love it at the same time. So before we begin, I'm going to tell you guys, grab a pen, pad, all that stuff. We're going to have prompts. We're going to do some guided stuff, take notes, as Brendon said before. Get yourself water, snacks, anything that makes you comfortable, and please participate in this. This is the perfect time to do this right now. I'm going to go back over, I think the chat might be on. I see a few comments in here, and check that out. So just see if there's anything.
Yeah, confirming the chat is now active. So for anybody who was submitting questions and answers, please go ahead and just use the main chat. And thank you again for your guys' patience on that.
Perfect. And I see Gloria, you missed the first 2. All good. We're going to do a really brief recap. So we're not going to be building foundational elements of what these laws are. So just pretend for a minute that you're taking it as gospel. That's the intention here today. Oh, sorry about that. Can you guys still see that? No.
No, it's just webcam right now. Need to
Apologies.
No worries.
I used to be so good at technology and like, oh, I'm an ace at this, and somehow I'm always closing windows when I'm not supposed to. No. So
yeah. And to confirm for Gloria and anybody else, we did post the links for the first 2 episodes into the chat. It's into the YouTube chat, and we'll make sure that in the YouTube info that will be updated as soon as possible with the additional links there as well. But even within the Portal to Ascension on the YouTube channel, if you do just go into the main video list and scroll back, you'll see both of them there as well.
Okay. All right, we're back up, right? You guys have the screen?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. So you guys should have everything you need at this point. So we're going to just quickly, very similar to last time, I'm going to talk about who I am. We'll do a little ceremony before that. We'll do a quick recap. There's a lot of stuff in the first 2 sessions that we got to go over. So it's going to take some time, but we'll do it quickly as possible. And we'll maybe present some things that link in a different way that didn't before. So there should be some new information there for you. And then we're going to jump into the law of compensation, the law of attraction, and then we're going to do unified guided meditation all together. And we're actually going to do this loop in quantum time. So that should be a lot of fun. And that's how we're going to roll. So just take a moment, guys. Let's just slow things down for a minute. Slow things down and just stretch. Just maybe however you feel like it, or you can follow along with me. I'll guide you. Just maybe bring the shoulders back, bring the arms wide, and then bring your hands above the head. Take a deep breath in. If you feel like you need to stand to do this, go ahead and stand to do this. Let's just open up our spine here. Keep those shoulders down, pull back. Just feel where you're at and exhale and come over to your right. And again to the left. So come to center, breathing in and exhaling to the left. And then breathing in, come back up to the top. Drop the arms, roll the shoulders for a moment. 2 times here, backwards, and then come back forward. And then the neck. And this is a lot more than just the physical activity of doing this stretching. This physical opening that we're doing here is actually going to allow us to absorb more information. So we're creating openings in ourselves physically, and our mind will begin to open as a result. But just like reverse engineering things, we can do it from both directions. We can set a physical intention and take an action. So we're actually doing some of this already, so that action is going to allow us to develop more on the spiritual plane, and vice versa. From the spiritual plane, we can get more clear with what actions we want to take, so that we can be more effective with the actions we take. So just check and see if there's anything that's needs a little bit more stretching. I'll give you a moment to do that. And just close your eyes for a moment. Just take a breath in. However you breathe is fine. Just keep your back straight. Just get yourself physically aligned, because we're going to get ourselves into a process of alignment. So we want to be physically aligned as a gesture into the spiritual, that we're going to now get spiritually aligned. Our inner world is going to become aligned like our outer world, and vice versa. We're going to be going from the core to the now, even just in this little exercise, a bite-sized way of doing it. So just breathe in and just begin to scan your body from head to toe and just see how you're feeling physically. Is there any spot that needs adjustment or has some tension, needs a little relaxation? Can your jaw soften? Can your shoulders soften? Can you really open up and be completely comfortable in the posture you're in right now? And then on the next inhale, just check your mental plane. Like, do you have a lot of chatter in the mind right now, or are you really present right now to my voice, to your body, to your breath? And if you're not already breathing in through your nose and doing belly breaths, I invite you to transition to that. And just breathing in, and on the exhale, just let go of any thinking you might have. Let go, let go. And on the inhale, bring awareness to that emotional state that you might be in right now. Are you feeling a deep calm and comfort, really presence? Or is there something from the day that might have you more excited feeling? Let's just make that smooth, or set an intention for how you want it to feel for you. Breathe into that. And just let go. And just breathe into it one more time, in through the nose. And let go. Just feel your experience and feel how you can manipulate that just by using the breath and intention. Now, I'd like to invite you to set an intention for today in this episode. What would you like to get out of this? What would you like to have happen as a result of our time here together? And give you a moment to think about that. Maybe there's something you'd like to have more clarity around in your life and what you could do next. Maybe it's more clarity on what it is that you desire, what your preference is. Or maybe it's just more connection. Whatever it may be, just set whatever your intention is to get out of today. Once you have a mental note, take a deep breath into that. And let go. And you can bring your hands up to prayer position, put it in front of your heart. Just look at that intention very clearly. Get familiar with it. Give it some attention. Give our intention attention. And once you have that clear, just take another breath. Say thank you. I love you to yourself, whatever it might be, and just drop the hands down and gently open your eyes, and you can start to wiggle your fingers and come back to where we are right now. And I invite you, for those of you that took out a pen and a pad or have something to write with, write down what that intention is. Let's see how that gets fulfilled. So start with the end in mind. What is it that you would like to have at the end of this, right? And just write that down, like what you like to experience. And while you're writing that down, see some more chats. I'll try not to close any screens by looking at this. And it looks like those were answered in the chat itself. So that's all good. So just write that down, no rush. And you can keep writing it as we move forward here. I'm going to tell you a little about me. So your questions for me, now is the time to ask them. So as you can see back here, I live in the jungle, pretty much. I live in Costa Rica. I'm a family person. And I pretty much feel like I have the life at 99% of the time, like everything's just really going exactly to plan at this juncture, this last year, right? And maybe even a little bit before that, right? And I've definitely had this in my life prior, but there was definitely also a time where I had no idea what was going on, and my life was complete chaos. And if somebody asked me what was going on, I might have told them like I knew what the heck was going on, but I really didn't know what was going on. I was definitely like sleepwalking through reality, just following along with the programming. Like I wouldn't say to the complete matter, but pretty solidly indoctrinated by the system, even though it felt wrong and it felt uncomfortable. I just was following the laws of Caesar, and I was very attracted to the world of Caesar and doing the things that are what success was determined as when I was growing up. And that's, being wealthy and having a lot of people around you and making sure your person next to you looks a certain way and all of that stuff. I got caught really up in that world, right? I did that. And while I found success in it in many ways, I also created a lot of messes for myself that I completely unwittingly was creating. I didn't know my erroneous thinking. I didn't realize it was even erroneous because the culturescape had convinced me that this is the way that men treat women, and this is the way women treat men, and this is the way love and relationships work. And quite honestly, like I didn't realize that when I watched TV and they showed all these characters on TV and how the men treat the women and the women treat the men, I didn't even realize that was not how it's supposed to be. Right? I thought that's just how it's supposed to be. And I was stuck in that reality, and I was just repeating it. And I didn't even realize that it was my own thinking, my belief sets that repeated it. I wasn't connecting to my core by any sense of the mean. Like I just was like, I didn't even get it at one point. I was actually almost angry at it for having to be here. And there was a time in my life where I had a deep depression, but that was because I had experienced so much success in the world of Caesar that my ego had gotten inflated so much that I had to like crash, right? I had to hit a wall. I had to experience pain, right? So while I had that rise in the world of Caesar, and I had launched many businesses and were very successful, and I raced motorcycles, I was very successful. Like everything in life was very, very easy at one point while I was following the world of Caesar and the formula of Caesar. But along the way, while I was creating whatever I was creating, I was doing damage that I didn't realize, like a Mack truck driving through a narrow street, not even realizing he's driving over bicycles or whatever. Like that, I just didn't know. Right. So I woke up to that I was doing that. And that's a harsh reality. Right. Oh my God, this whole existence I have is based on this other system that's not real laws. That's like these weird societal rules and moral values, but they don't really align with what my heart says. They just kind of, some of them might like not infringe upon it, but some of them do. And that's what led me on this path of really diving into this and learning more about myself and get to have those ego deaths that allow me to change my perspective and look at things in a new way. So that's a little bit about me, why I'm here, why I'm doing this. And, it's been so powerful for me. My life got so much easier and flowy, but that's not really the cool part about it. The cool part is that I might be doing the same exact thing, but I'm doing it in a totally different way and for totally different reasons. And what ultimately ends up happening is it's like I'm on the same path, but instead of me creating obstacles along the path, I'm creating allies. And it's helped me to grow my community. It's really helped me to strengthen my relationship with my woman and my baby, and myself, and really everybody in my life, to see more clearly what's going on there. So with that, that's why I share this. And I really hope that, no matter where you are at, like, this helps you realize how malleable everything is, and that the limit really is your imagination, and anything is possible. So, Brendon, we have a question in the Q&A. If you could just send him a link, that'd be great. So that being said, let's go into a quick recap here, right? And just, we're going to start with sacred geometry again. We're going to blast through this compared to the last time. I know we recapped on it a little bit longer, but there are some people here that have not seen the first one. So this is good to have and a great refresher. So in the last one, we talked about sacred geometry in the first two significantly, but very much so in the first one, right? So we talked about the flower of life, which is this image on the left. And that is like a pattern of existence, right? The same sense of actually beingness. And that's what the universe kind of lays out and creates as a way to unfold our space-time experience. And then we overlaid this, and this is a pattern that's seen all throughout nature. We're going to show you that. And then we overlaid that with this other pattern, the Fibonacci sequence, which illustrates animation, right? So if we take that flat, one-dimensional, or you call it two-dimensional because we have height and width, right, on the flower there, and now we are adding this spiraling motion that's coming out, simulating growth or movement, right? So what this is showing us, because of this spiral and this infiniteness of this ratio that exists, is everything is pointing to a single source, right? Everything we see in nature has a single, everything has a single source, everything that exists. But when we look at these patterns, we can see that it's like this infinite, endless source that it gets to a point where it's out of the frequency of our eyes to be able to see it. So sacred geometry allows us to actually give some kind of like physical mental construct to a physical world, right? A physical image to a mental idea, right? So if you can hold these two in your mind and see this is how the oneness kind of functions, then we can look at it here again in nature again. You can see these patterns. This first one here on the left has such a perfect pattern of both the Fibonacci and the flower of life really clearly seen. And then you have a wave and you have tiger's eye, which show this endless spiral, right? And if you've ever done psychedelics or had any one of those experiences, you've probably had a very clear experience of what this is like. Most people have, at least the people that have done it in a ceremonial format. So that is kind of like the thing that points to this first law. That's where we found it was important for us to discuss it every single time, because it is the foundation of our whole laws. It's before our first law, like this is the thing that we can observe, right? So then we dive into this law of divine oneness. And that is, there is only one source. That source is unified and all things extend from it. We just talked about this, right? So I don't have to go too far into this. But what this allows us to do is give us kind of some kind of direction. And where is source? Like, where's your source? Like, where's your source? Like, most people go like this, right? Some people, it's like down lower. I don't know too many people that do this, but maybe it's happened. But you don't see people out there like, right, where's your source? Like, where it is. So you know what I'm talking about, or you don't. But what ends up happening is this oneness, our source, right? In order for it to have any kind of experience, there has to be some kind of illusion of separateness. Because if it's just the one thing, it's everything. And if everything is the only thing that exists, it's also nothing. So in order to have this kind of observational experience, we have to have a way to separate. So what do we do? How does that happen, right? That happens through the law of vibration, right? And that's where it says that the law claims that everything, every atom, every object, every living thing, any possible idea of a thing, or even an idea itself, is in constant motion, vibrating at a specific frequency. It has its own frequency. So that one unified field would actually even have its own unique frequency as viewed from the whole, even though I'm saying whole like this, but it's infinite, right? And so would this handkerchief, right? Like my props today. So, some people might actually say the sound of that frequency is an oh, or a hue. How do you do? I don't know if you ever did an Eckankar or check those guys out. Pretty interesting. But the people have their sounds that they think this whole universe operates. So the point is, to get separation, we move from that divine oneness to the vibration. And it is in this vibrational frequency that we can experience that separateness from the oneness. So check your vibe, check my vibe, right? We can all feel it. We say this. Each sense that we have uses vibration. Our sight, our sound, our touch, everything uses vibration. So that inner feeling that we feel, that vibe, same deal, right? But it's on a more subtle level. And the more we tune into this, the more clear we can actually connect with our source. But if we don't even see the vibration, it's like a wall. If we don't believe vibration is there, we can't see that, and believing there's just source, we can get there, but the path is kind of a little bit cloudy from what I've been described, what people have described to me, right? That's how they would say. So we all know there's that undercurrent within us, our vibe, and we can change it. And all we have to do is think about it for a minute. So the power to will ourselves into a vibration is within. So back to that 100% responsibility. So it's the power to actually transform within, and we don't have to go anywhere, right? And if we forget this, life's going to start happening to us. But if we remember this, when we remember this and we're good at it, life is happening for or even as us. So now what happens? There's this vibration, right? And you mean to tell me this is a vibration? This is a vibration? This is a vibration, right? So it actually all densifies at some point. And it densifies to the point that we can actually see it in our visible spectrum or in our hearing range, right? Those are all waves, so in vibrations. So it gets into a range where we can now perceive it, and now it becomes real. But there's all kinds of stuff we can't see that we know is real, like cell phone, right? How does this thing work? We know that there's all this stuff we can't see. It's not in our visible spectrum, right? It's not even in our audio spectrum. We need this antenna and device to be able to do it, but we know it's real, right? So we're learning how to use vibration to expand our perspective of awareness and seeing how it's used to make things separate and how we can move along that path, right? So how the heck do we move along that path? How do we use vibration to create something, right? Because we're just this soup of everything nothingness of oneness into a vibration, right? That now densifies into something that's in our visible range. And then all of a sudden we have this thing that we use in the physical world that we're constantly doing in the mental and physical world, which is activity, right? We're constantly in activities. We're doing activities. Mental thinking is an activity, right? Reading's an activity. Running's an activity. So that brought us to the law of action. So what we discussed here is the actions we take are often a result of our vibrational frequency. So if we don't check our vibe, we're going to create disharmony throughout the whole action, right? So we want to make sure we get into the vibrational frequency that is in harmony with the outcome that we want to take. And that's where we're going to talk about the law of attraction, because that kind of is the outcome, right? What we want to attract, or maybe even the law of compensation a little bit. We'll get to that. So what I showed last time was that action is actually a trigger to our universal feedback loop. And this is a concept I presented last time. We're going to talk about it a little bit in a moment here. But the action is the thing that starts this loop, right? So if it was a gun, it would be the trigger, right? So another thing we talked about with the action is using our hands to create. Like, we really do need to take action. There's so many people out there that just say law of attraction, just sit there and go, we'll talk about this more, but should we talk about it right now? Because some people steer us down the path of just be high vibe and attract it, right? You probably heard those people before. And I'm not saying it doesn't work. I'm not saying it doesn't work. But in my experience, the more effort, we'll get this in again, that we put in, the more energy we put in, the faster it attracts to us. So you could probably sit there and will it through your mind, your imagination, faith, and belief and get there. But when we take our actions, we're really actually sending a message to the universe that we really want something. And we can also, we're here. Like, why are we here? Why are we living our lives? So we can actually be in activity. And if you look through any scriptures, they always talk about the deeds that we do and how important it is to not only do deeds, but good deeds, right? So it's actually more fun too. So use your hands, get in action. We talked about the law of inaction, whereas, what distractions are. So I'm going to just mention that again, because it's going to come up with attraction. We have the same word, right? Distraction is to be off our path. It's probably one of the biggest. Distraction and sedation are probably the biggest epidemics on our planet right now. Like, you want to talk about issues that we have, like, we don't have an obesity issue because people are just obese. We have an obesity issue because people are sedated or distracted, right? So they're not getting the right information because they're just sedated, consuming, and that's what's happening. It's not just the food or the lack of activity. That lack of activity is a result of the distraction. So maybe you could chicken and egg it. But so many of them are distracted. That means off their path. Or sedated. That means settled in, right? So you're not going anywhere, or you're not even on your path if you're in these modes. So the more that we endure, the more fruits that we will bear. And yes, if rest, I'm all for taking a rest. I walked my son. I'm going to actually turn my camera around to show you guys. So I'm going to be more interactive. Hopefully this is stuff that you want to see. But I walked my son. My son was hysterical today because he wanted to watch TV. And he's 2.5 years old, right? So walk him away, and I bring him out to this area, which you probably can see over there. You probably can see, I imagine, pretty beautiful view, right? And I stood him at the edge of that. You know what? I'm going to do it for you guys right now. And this is a little bit, I wasn't planning on doing this, but today I'm feeling a little bit more of this energy. So I walked him out to see this, right? I gave him a little talk, 2.5 years old, right? He doesn't talk. He's got like agua and 2 choice words, and every once in a while we'll get like a please mama galleta or something. So 2 different languages and stuff like that. But I said to him, listen, man, you got all of this. You got this whole world right here in front of you. There's plenty of time to rest. So we're going to use the TV when we rest, but today we're going to go tackle the world and we're going to go have fun. And an hour later, he was climbing up something he'd been trying to climb up for months and hadn't been able to, and finally, and just did. So maybe it was my pep talk, maybe not. But the reality is we have this world. We have this beautiful world in front of us. So let's seize it. Let's enjoy it, right? We all have our own inner compass and know when we cross the line. So we can listen to that, or we can wait until it like slaps us in the face, which it will eventually. They all have. I mentioned this before about alignment, making sure that we are in alignment with the vibrational frequency and our source, that make sure that our actions are going to reflect our inner guidance, not our ego chatter, because the world we experience is really on that outside is really a reflection of our inner world, which we got into with the law of correspondence. Again, this is new for you. I know I'm going through this stuff fast, but a lot of people are there. They've been through the other two. And those of you that have been there, I hope you're seeing some of the new elements that we're talking about here, and the pace is good. So if you want me to slow down or anything, guys, just drop it in the comments. But this is kind of just how I'm naturally running around today. It feels good for me. So, but I know I've got like my New Yorker energy in it, not my jungle vibes. So, law of correspondence: as within, so without; as above, so below. Your outer world is a reflection of your inner world. So just say that for a second. My outer world is a reflection of my inner world. And if you didn't say it and point the finger and use the my, not the your, right? Let's take ownership of this. Let's take responsibility for this. And just ask yourself, is this true? My outer world is a reflection of my inner world. And if you're like, what does that mean? Like, what's he even talking about? So think about the last time that maybe you had some strife in your life, some kind of discomfort, and think about what happened prior to that strife happening. Where was your inner world? Were you going in like completely in faith that this is going to be like the most amazing experience? Or do you go into that experience thinking this is going to be some shit? I'm not looking forward to this, right? 9 times out of 10, it's going to be the latter. So if you don't have one example right now, just start paying attention. You probably did already if you were at the last one. So this is the universe's way of like showing us what's going on in the inner world, right? We have to have some kind of mechanism for some kind of communication. So each action we take is delivered with that underlying energetic force. And this makes our physical world malleable. It also shows us what energy we put in by reflecting it back to us, right? So it allows us to start to be able to measure things and learn, right? And be able to have the feedback loop, right? We talked about the feedback loop. So this is some of the information coming back to us. This allows that information to come back, is what correspondence does. So if you were thinking about like an insecure person, or if you've been insecure, like insecure people, and I had a bout with insecurity in my life, are insecure no matter who else is in the room. They're just insecure. It's not that somebody else made them insecure. It's that they felt insecure going in. And as our insecurities or fears grow, which we become more aware of when we're paying attention on these subtle levels, we'll actually increasingly find ourselves in situations that feel that way. Now, we have one of two choices. Well, we could just be like, oh my gosh, life sucks, and get depressed, which happens. It probably happens to every single person. We all do it. I've done it plenty of times, right? But sometimes we bypass the depression. But if we don't bypass it and we go through it, what usually happens afterwards is it forces us to grow, right? An insecure person, a person that wrestled with insecurity their whole life, when they graduate out of that insecurity, they are like no F's given person. Like they are so confident, cool, and collected because they wrestled with it and they got through it, and they no longer have to deal with it. It doesn't come back, right? As long as they actually did overcome it. So how we're feeling inside is going to affect what our reality is. So when we choose to celebrate life, we start to become celebrated. We start to become celebrities, or whatever our heart's calling in. But like I can tell you from experience, for me, there is one place that I used to go to all the time, and I didn't get the kind of treatment that I was hoping. And this was when I was not being, this is before my wake up, my clean up, my whole transformation, right? And man, I felt like the world was collapsing on me every time I was with those individuals. And now I've got a whole community of people working for me, the same ones that I mentioned in the beginning of the conversation. Like they're actually out there helping, volunteering, donating their time and energy to help relaunch a business. So it changed because I changed. It changed because I changed. I firmly believe that anyway. So life's usually a mixture of these two, and where we're in flow, and sometimes we're feeling a little growth. But this feedback loop allows us to, for lack of a better term, tilt the scales a little bit. And you can see why that's funny in the next slide here. And tilt the scales in our favor to like actually have more flow and move with that. So as far as tilting the scales, check this out. So this is the other aspect of correspondence that is so few talked about, because people look at this definition that the Hermetic principles gave out, right? And it's also written pretty much identical in Bible. There's some scripture around it, but the other aspect is just think about that word correspondent for a second. Like, where do you see correspondence? You have a CNN correspondent, right? You see them in the news. What are they doing? What are they doing? They might even be somebody that's like picturing a picture of somebody that's like delivering a message, right? That's another type of correspondence. You might, the UN has a correspondent. Correspondence is like a message delivery service. It's a method of communication, right? So this is the method, this correspondence thing. So we have to be paying attention to it, right? So we're being communicated, our outer world showing us our inner world. So if we refine our communication skills, we can start to see the subtle ways that we're creating little bits of, well, use that word, strife, sort of issues. And we start to get a clear picture of what's happening, why we're causing it. And we can start to do it with without judgment. That's the cool thing, because it just is. It's what happened. It's just the message I got, right? It doesn't mean anything more than that. Like, if somebody says, how are you doing today? Or better yet, if somebody says, pick a number from 1 to 10, and you say 10, and they didn't want you to pick the number 10, they don't get mad at you for 10. 10 is just a number. It's just a measuring device. And if we start to look at what happens as, and we'll get to this in the next law, as a way to just refine our skills and our practices rather than saying it's good or bad, then we can start to actually use the next law, the law of cause and effect. So the law of cause and effect says that every cause has its effect, every effect has its cause, right? Chance is just a name for something that a law that has not been recognized, right? So this is important because we talked about different causes, right? Most people understand what cause and effect is in general. The part that most people miss is the initial cause is not this lighter falling down and breaking something when it lands. The initial cause was my idea or impulse to throw it up in the first place. And there might even be something before that, but we'll go with that, right? So if we can trace back our actions back to their initial impulse, that initial piece where we got that desire, we can see, is this an egoic thing or is this coming from source? Where is this impulse coming from? And this is a key thing to consider when you look at the law of cause and effect. Don't just like figure out things from an observational, what's the fastest way for me to drive a nail into a board? I'm just going to hit it as hard as possible. Stop for a moment, right? Like, what are you trying to accomplish? Okay, I'm trying to build a birdhouse. So driving the nail into the board as fast as possible actually isn't even the right action to be taking. Like doing that as fast as I can. The right action is to be measuring and making sure everything's fit, right? So something happens. We start to change how we are. So we can only do this, though, if we are listening to the universe's feedback and we're willing to to actually take the responsibility that we are the cause. Like, honestly, like, look at the fact that we are taking 100% responsibility. And it's how do I change myself to resolve the situation? And it may not be a physical action. It may be. It might be calling somebody up and apologizing. It might be writing a letter. But it might be just actually going upstairs and rethinking, and going to a quiet place and rethinking what it is, and how did I create this situation? How do I undo this situation? Or how do I get this thing? Like, what is the plan I can put in place from a divine source? So if you want to get a new car, Mr. Material person, or somebody that just needs a new car, whatever, no judgments. Again, you can be material. It's fun. We're in a material world. So what you can actually do is you can build a path to how you get that. And if you do it from an egoic place, it's going to be like, I need the money and I need the car, right? And I'll sell or say anything to make it happen, right? On the worst case scenario, people will lie, they'll steal, they'll do all kinds of weird stuff to get things from an egoic perspective. We've all experienced it. But when you go to source, something different happens. But we're going to get to that a little bit later. Because what happens here is when we do this, our urge to project or cast blame immediately gets redirected to solving an issue at hand and making decisions with confidence. And that's what we want, right? We want to be able to like know with certainty and make our decisions or make our choices. They're grounded, feeling this is the right thing to do and be able to move forward from that. So maybe there's an evidence collection process for your mind to quiet, but that's really for your mind to quiet. Because if you know what it is that you desire and you connect to your source, that is really everything that you need, because the path will be unfolded for you. So as we get better at this, the more that we actually end up getting rewarded. And that leads us to 40 minutes in, a little bit more than that actually with all the technical stuff, the law of compensation. So thank you for letting me go fast there. I hope that was really good for you guys. Yeah, and if you guys relate to the concept of the feedback loop, we're going to talk about it a little bit more here. Or if you use this, let me know. Drop in some comments. So let's talk about the law of compensation. So actually, I put this definition up here. Normally I have a little different video or something like that, but sometimes it's really great to look at how we use the word versus what the definition is and versus what the origin is, right? And that makes a clearer understanding when we're looking at the laws of the universe. What did they mean when they said the law of compensation? They didn't mean like wages getting paid, which is one of the ways that we use it, right? Today, it's like we pay you for their time and work, but it is acting in relation to its origin, which you see here as counterbalance, right? So today it's usually associated with money, and the word actually means counterbalance. And if you know what a counterbalance is, it's like a way to offset things. So when I mentioned before tilting the scales, it's kind of a way to make sure the counterbalance is delivering the balance that you want. So it's not really tilting the scales, it's actually just setting the stage in a proper way. So the law of compensation states that a person will always be compensated for their efforts or for their contributions, no matter what the effort, no matter how much or how little, but they'll be compensated in kind, right? So our efforts, whatever we put into something, like you get out of it what you put into it, kind of is one of the things that we might hear in our language quite a bit. You get what you give, kind of that kind of stuff. So we actually touched on this a little bit because in the last one we talked about karma a little bit in the universal feedback loop, and we're going to talk a little bit about more today. But when we hear these certain sayings, just realize how we're using these words, right? Everything that we do, every action that we take, we have that cause and effect, right? We talked about that. So we have this effect, but the effect is just the effect. The compensation is the reward. So, for example, if you were putting together a car, right, and you were putting the wheels on a car, that's all you're doing. You jack the car up, you put the wheels on, you tighten them up, put it down, tighten up again, put everything away, clean up. The effect is you have a car with 4 new wheels on it, right? But the compensation is your friend driving you to wherever you got to go, right? So that's the distinction between these two. So we have to drive these distinctions because we start to see how when we mix the way we use the word and what it actually was intended for, we can go down the wrong path, right? So look at the law of compensation in this way as a way of counterbalance. So you're going to get back everything you put in. And our reward is going to be reflected by the energy which we put in. Which means if we were disappointed in the outcome, it just means that we didn't get the formula right. So we can stop being disappointed. We can just tie it into the feedback loop. But the law of compensation really stands more as a confirmation message from the universe, right? A correspondence gives us our feedback, the cause and effect give us an observational way of seeing how this creates that. And compensation says, boom, you got it right. Or nope, you're a little bit off. This is what you created with the formula you made. So I want to give you a quick warning about implementing all of this stuff, right? So when we actually, because we're gonna do a session, we're gonna actually do probably 2 sessions here. We're gonna do a shortened version, and then we're gonna do a one for you guys. I want to just let you know that when you start doing this, or when we start doing this, we are probably going to rock our world a bit. So if you've already started using this feedback loop in some way in your own formula, you probably know this. Like when you start diving into your belief sets and start changing them, and then changing the way you respond to things, the world gets upset to it because they have a certain expectation to it. So things that were destined to fail or break, they seem to fail and break faster. So they send us quickly in a new direction because we're changing. We're actually freeing ourselves from our habits and beliefs that were just kept us in a cycle, right? So when we do that, the universe is going to respond, and as a result, rather than getting nervous and be like, oh my gosh, everything seems like it's crumbling, it's actually a sign that things are changing. And they're changing, and that's a good thing. It's actually to enrich our faith. It's to enrich our faith. And when the conversation comes, it will be exactly what we needed, even if it doesn't come immediately or exactly how we expected it. So we might get presented with some ugly truths about our own beliefs. I know I did when I did this. So be prepared. You might find the same thing happen. I had to overcome a lot of things I was seeing, like, whoa, I was pretty asshole thing to do, or be like that. So the cool thing, though, is it clears out really fast, right? There's an old saying, I think it was Thomas Jefferson that said it. It's if you're going through hell, keep going, right? So you might have experienced this at some point. You may experience it at some point when you're changing things. If you can't handle it, just slow it down, right? You can just slow down the transformation you're making within, but you can handle it. You can handle it, but it is what it is, and it will definitely uproot a few things. Now, if we focus on our compensation, like, what am I going to get out of this? Which is what a lot of people do with the law of attraction. They're just like, I want this thing and I want it now. And they sit there and they think about it like, I want it. And the word I want means I lack, right? That word want means lack. So they're actually saying, I don't have it. They're not saying like, I am it, or any way pulling it to them. But what ends up happening is if we get into the compensation, we start to trigger doubt. So rather than thinking about what our reward and how we're going to be compensated for this, returning to remembering what it is that we want to create and who we're being, where we're getting that information from the source from, and linking those two, the compensation will happen on its own, Compensation will happen on its own. You can set an intention for it to be something specific, but chances are it's going to be far better than whatever you imagine anyway. So if you've already started using this feedback loop from our last session, then awesome. Once you've done it once, it's in the subconscious, so it will start to do it on its own. And it seems like it kind of gradually accelerates. So if you don't want that experience, you probably don't even want to do it when we do a example of it, because your mind will automatically start to say, okay, how can I take responsibility in this? Like, how can I look at this a little differently? Where can I change my frame of thinking if it's not already, right? So a lot of you on here probably already are doing that, but sometimes it feels willful. Once we've done this a few times, like it's kind of addictive. So real quick, before we do that, we got before we do a short exercise, I want to talk to you about two more pieces. One, I want to jump back to karma. All right, because I realized something this last week, and this is why I didn't get into it last session, but I realized how much it overlaps with the feedback loop. Not karma itself, but another aspect, which we awfully have as a concept of karma. So what do we mean when we say karma, right? What is it that we mean? So, well, what do we hear in society? Like, what do you hear when people are talking about karma? Like in my experience, we hear things like, we'll get what's coming. He'll get what's coming to him, or something like, karma's going to come smack her in the face, right? And or something like that. And those, when we hear people use karma, it's usually talking about somebody else. It's usually projecting. It's not saying like, my karma is, right? I feel I created this karma and now I am undoing it. Sometimes we do, but not in general population, right? And even in the spiritual community, it's used as projection or like a way to avoid taking responsibility, like blaming why something happened. Like, it must be my ancestral karma, man, right? Like people say stuff like that. And when we do that, we're just not taking responsibility. So that's not, there's even people that describe karma as endless suffering, right? But that I'm not going to say that's what karma is. So if you think that's what it is, let's just get ready to get shocked, because we don't want to use it as a way to avoid responsibility. So if we look at the word karma, it's Sanskrit, which actually literally means action, right? Or work, as just a concept. So karma can refer to all the actions a person makes, both in their body and their mind. It's actually got three components. All the activity of karma, way this karma happens, all our activity creates the experience of dharma that we have. Now, the wheel of karma, this has three distinct components to it, right? The wheel of karma. And that is, I have it written over here, Briti. And that's the thing that propels the action, the impression. Samskara, that is what's created by the thought of the ensuing action. And then the final would be the action propelled by the samskara. And then this would continue to happen, right? So if we were to look at it from the feedback loop perspective, right? We have, and we just actually look at it from the law of action perspective. We have our impulse that gives us the thought to take the action, right? So source message comes out to us, and then we have our thought, and then we take the action. So if we get into vibration and we can tune ourselves to something different than what our habitual patterns are, then we can start to affect our outcomes, and we're no longer stuck in this wheel of karma. Yes, our activities are still creating, right? Karma is action, and we're still creating, but we're creating something different with intention. So the feedback loop, using that would be a way to unbind ourselves from the wheel of karma, or at least create a new wheel that's like more to our enjoyment. So Brandon had dropped in a question here about the law of compensation. So that's my take on karma that I wanted to give you guys. Tell me if that vibes with you. Does that vibe with you? Does it make sense how this feedback loop is different than karma, and karma might be different than the normal thing that people talk about? People normally talk about the wheel of karma as karma. And then the other piece was the projection piece. So you see how people use this as a projection or an avoidance, taking responsibility. So the question here, does the law of compensation also incorporate failure as a positive way to figure out how to redirect? For example, sometimes the compensation is learning what doesn't work, but brings us closer to figuring out how things can work. Absolutely. And to speak to that, what actually is it's showing how things work, right? It's showing how it's always showing how things work and like how what we're getting back. It's us that perceives that as a failure. Just because we didn't get what we wanted, the potion that we used to create whatever our reality is creates that reality. So if it's a frog's egg, 2 eyes, and a toad's foot, and every time we get that and we put it in something, it creates a potion that we drink and we fall in love, it will do that consistently. We have to start changing the ingredients, but we're in this habitual pattern. And the habitual pattern is essentially on the spiritual level. And the correspondence reveals that by showing us in the outside world what's going on inside of us. So I would say it's always delivering a positive result, or it's always delivering a result. Positive or negative is just when we take the time to judge it, which I might just refrain from doing and just look at it like a number. Like that's just, it is what it is. Like I might not like the number, but I'm not going to like lose myself because of the number, get emotional about it. So absolutely. I mean, everything's here for us to learn from. And if we take that approach, nothing is a negative, right? Just oops. So one other thing I want to say about law of compensation, and this is from more of my experience and what I've seen. And I want to point it out to you, and you guys tell me if you agree or if it's not at all like what you see. It appears to me that mental activity or mental effort rewards are significantly compounded more than physical effort. And that might be because the mental activity gives us better actions, right? That's what I would presume. The mental activity will give us better actions and yield us better results, if we're going to call things better or worse, right? More fruitful. So if I'll just take this and where I've seen it in my own life. You know, I know a lot of people that I grew up in the Northeast, so I know a lot of hard workers. It's something that New Yorkers are very prided on, that they're hard working people. Very, very proud of that. Like Texas, everything's bigger, right? And they're men, right? That's how we know in California, the beach and California vibes. New York's hard workers. And I watched a lot of hard workers grow up my whole life, and I watched them yield great rewards, move through their careers. My father, even from a plumber on the railroad to a director managing hundreds of employees, doing amazing things. But he was up working at 4 a.m. every day and wasn't home till 6 p.m. at night. And he was working hard and he was working a lot, and he was taking a lot of action. It yielded a lot of good results. But then you look at somebody like, we're just going to use like an Elon Musk or a Bill Gates or or Bezos or any of these people that have found a way to create with their minds. Some of their products aren't even physical products, and we're buying them, right? They were able to construct something so great in their minds that the rewards, some of these people have, those three people add their wealth up together, they have more wealth than everybody on the planet, except for maybe like some of the bankers, right? That we don't know about. So they've created that much compensation coming back to them because they've used their mind. So if we can really tap into this and make sure that our actions are reflected from a place of source, we will each, my premise is that we each experience ridiculous amounts of abundance. The thing is, the majority of people aren't thinking this way. They're thinking differently. They're not even thinking. And if you went through a public schooling system or grew up outside of that society that's thinking this way, we have to recreate the way we're thinking so we can actually create that kind of abundance. And whatever your opinion is of those individuals that I mentioned, I'm not a fan of them. I think they're of the world of Caesar, not the world of God, right? So our abundance is probably going to come in a different way. Maybe they are the world of God. I just don't hear them talking about it. So, but one of the things I just wanted to really bring that home to you guys is that start with the mental activity. If our mind is, if we're sitting there and constantly in doubt, we're never going to be able to take the actions that we need to take or take them in the way that we need to be successful, right? Like if you're a boxer and you're up in the ring and you're standing there and you're like scared you're going to get hit, right? And you're just kind of doing that. If you're doing this all the time, you're never going to be able to throw a punch, right? So you got to be able to make sure that you can play both sides. And starting with the mental will actually allow you to go much farther with the physical. So we're going to do that. So anybody, if they need a glass of water, now would be a good time. And we're going to just create a little calm space. I'm going to drink a little bit of water myself. We're going to get set up here. Thank you guys, everybody. What we're going to do here, you know what? Like most of this slide, I'm going to just actually jump over this one because we actually end up touching on it with Brendon's question there. We're going to talk about some tomatoes and we're going to do the loop. All right. So I think everybody here has everybody here cut a tomato? Has anybody here not cut a tomato? I think everybody here has probably cut a tomato, but we're going to practice this loop in just kind of a meditative setting, something we do like as if we're going to have to cut tomatoes, right? But before we cut tomatoes, we're going to do this. And this process is going to take longer because I'm going to guide it, but this is something you can do mentally when you're used to it, like in microseconds. So we're going to extend it out and really kind of break into it. So cutting tomatoes. Now, the average person is going to be like, I'm just going to dice them or slice them or give little thought to it. I just need to get my tomatoes on my sandwich, my salad. I'm going to just cut it however it fits, right? But let's take this small action and stop and just close your eyes. Just close your eyes. Imagine that you're at your kitchen and you got your cutting board out. You got a knife in your hand, your knife that you normally use. And you have a tomato and you're holding it. And just visualize it and like feel it in your hand. Make it really, really real. Maybe take it up and like feel the skin a little bit and you know how tough the texture is. Maybe Smell it. Just feel that tomato. And now set it back down on the cutting board, right? We just took several actions to get here, but there was no intention with any of them except for I'm going to cut tomatoes for dinner or for my meal. So let's stop for a moment and just take a breath. And what are we really doing here? We're not making dinner. I mean, yes, we're making dinner, but why are we making dinner? Like, what is the point of us making dinner? And when we start to ask this question, like, we can start to open up some possibilities, some ethers, right? To nourish my body. My body needs to be nourished. I like the taste of tomatoes, right? I'm gonna make dinner for somebody I love, and they love tomatoes, right? I'm gonna make them the marinara sauce that they love, or make a pizza or whatever it is, right? We start to get a little bit of intention, and we start to get a little bit more clarity on the vibration around this. Oh my gosh, like, wait, I'm doing this because I want to make, I'm just gonna give one for you guys, right? I'm doing this because I want to give something beautiful to someone that I love, right? So how do you cut your tomatoes now? You've just linked like an intention to your action, right? So now we start to think about how this person would want the tomatoes, right? Now we changed our dish from a salad to a pizza. Our actions completely change when we start looking back at the root cause. And that's really what I'm attempting to illustrate here. So I hope that you have it. Like, what will end up happening here is that you can come back out of this. We're gonna do one that's a real life scenario, let you guide it on your own. But when we start to realize that the reason why we're doing this thing is for an underlying cause, not just to get food into our bodies, but actually we're going to nourish ourselves. We're going to nourish somebody we love. We're taking care of them. Everything we do, every single action will change. And as simple as going from making a salad to a pizza will happen. And it seems like a small change, but when we start doing this and aligning back to that source, what ends up happening is we start to make a lot of these changes. We start bringing a lot of smiles on people's faces and our own. We start giving a lot. We start really giving a lot genuinely from source, and the compensation will come, but it's not really the important thing. And what happens sometimes, though, we might go through all that extra effort, and our loved one might even miss what we just created for them. But that's the funny thing about that is it might appear that way, but if that's the case, then it's actually just a reminder for us that we might not notice everything our loved one does, and things might go unnoticed. I might be missing out on what my loved one does, if that's what happens as a result, because we're using the law of correspondence, right? So here I make this beautiful dinner, and maybe my partner doesn't even realize it. And I'm like, what the heck's going on? I thought I was going to get compensated for this. This is bullshit, right? Maybe there's that voice, something like that. But then it's like, wait, what did they do for me that maybe I didn't appreciate or recognize or say out loud or verbalize, or what did I miss? What did I miss? Right? So that's how this works. That's the compensation, right? We get a compensation, but it wasn't what we were expecting. So the law of correspondence allows us to now say, hey, what the heck did I miss? Or maybe the outcome is that they completely appreciate it and they love it, and you make beautiful love all night. Either way, it's a win, I think. So when things don't go exactly as you wanted, but you get an outcome, let your faith be renewed and let it reveal for you where you might be projecting how you're feeling onto someone else. Make it be something that allows you to stay aware. This little thing such as cutting tomatoes can lead to an argument. It's happened. And I think it's so trivial to have the conversation about it here, but thought that it would be fun to do because, quite honestly, this is the arguments that we have in our lives usually, or the stuff we have in our life is usually this trivial. So as new irritants resolve, as new irritants like come back into our lives, then we just continue to refine this process where we just check back, okay, what was my initial impulse, right? Let me connect with the source and see where this goes. So we're going to do this on a deeper level here in a minute. But I want to talk to you about the law of attraction, because we get to the law of attraction when we repeated this enough for something new to come in. If our host psyche is full, our bodies are full, our minds are full, and there's no room for something new to come in, it doesn't matter. We won't ever attract anything to us. We need to be able to actually use these prior laws to make room, right? To stop doing the things that we were doing that didn't get us the results that we wanted. And then get that connection so we can see what we should be doing, or what could be doing that relates more to our preference. And that's when we can actually use and leverage the law of attraction. So if you watch The Secret and you sat there and did everything they said in The Secret, and you're like, man, this kind of works, but it's not really working, but I feel better, but it's not. Sometimes it happens. Oh my gosh, there it is. I got my parking spot. It works for parking spots, but it doesn't work for my bank account. What the heck, right? So, well, the reason why is because we're not, it's a less, it's a child law to the higher laws, and we're not using all of these other ones before. So that's why I've spent so much time to even get to the law of attraction, because in order for it to work, we have to understand these mechanisms before it. So let's jump in to the law of attraction. And the way it's described again is when we hold attention on a thought, emotional state, well, thought and an emotional state, we'll move into a vibrational frequency where it exists and it will come into our reality. Like we're attracted to this thing. And that's how it's presented in The Secret. And that's like the way it's kind of written everywhere. We look at the law of attraction. But we learned, so this is going to might turn things upside down for you if you believe that. It doesn't completely, but it does. We learned in the law of vibration that like attracts like, right? So we already had this law of attraction here in this vibration setting. So it has roots in its second law. So when we actually start to consider this, and we consider this idea of frequency that we've talked about so much with the law of vibration and how it's malleable and we can move from one vibration to another, we start to realize that we actually don't attract anything to us. We just become a vibrational match to something new. So in the previous laws, when we've learned how to like take the things that we were doing in our formulas that we know aren't working, because we start to bring judgments up and we start to look at our belief sets and where we're projecting and those types of things, then we start to clear that out. It creates room for us to create something new and have different behaviors. And that actually allows us to literally change our vibration and become a match, become something different to, we actually like literally grow into that new vibration, that new frequency. And that's where those things that are new to us come into our awareness, but they've always been there. They've always been there. They just have been out of our range of sight, like it was out of our visual range, right? Or our hearing range. We didn't have that acute of hearing. So when we actually change our vibration, we're going to actually become aware of things that are in that new vibration that before didn't exist, seemingly didn't exist. Sometimes buildings like it would just show up out of, where did that come from? Right? It's almost like if you ever heard of the Mandela effect. So this kind of stuff happens. And because of that, the more we play with this, we realize that all the possibilities, anything is unlimited. It's just a matter of being able to follow this process consistently long enough to change my vibration from where I am now to what I would like it to be. So it's really just appearing that something's attracting to us, but it's actually on some level what we are. So we have to come back to the who I'm being. So if we think about the responsibility, the 100% responsibility aspect, that's what we're actually saying. I'm taking 100% responsibility for who I'm being. And I'm not even going to take an action until I check in with source beforehand and make sure my vibe is good. And then I'm going to take an action. And when I take that action, I'm going to see the result that it yields in my mind or in actual reality, right? And follow that path down. And I'm going to see how I interpret it, how I get frustrated or excited or happy, whatever it is, like good or bad. And I'm going to use that information to learn where I might actually be making my life a little more difficult than I needed to. And maybe making stress in other people's lives that I didn't need to. And I'm going to make a change so that my life is more flowy. So we become who we want to be. And that gives us what we want. And then we have that thing, right? And or that experience. So it's not like we do something and then we have something and then we are something. Like, I'm going to do this job really good. I'm going to get a promotion and then I can be the boss. It's actually like showing up as the boss, even if it's not on your title. And that doesn't mean you go into your boss and you start telling them what to do. Behave like a freaking boss in every single area of your life, and people will start to listen. That's what it means. Behave like a boss. And it doesn't, I'm not saying a bad boss. You choose what boss, right? Tune into your source. Go through the process. You choose. But if you're a boss on the inside, you'll be a boss on the outside. And before long, you probably won't be at that company anymore. And you'll be pissed off that you got fired. And you'll be like, what's going on, Iain? I use this feedback loop and I got fired from my job. And then 6 months later, you'll be like, I finally started my own business. I've been dreaming about this. And it's so freaking awesome. Right. So that's what I want. I want like you to be in that prime state, whatever it is, that goal, that dream that you have, to go after it. And if you're already going after it, awesome. I want you to be more excited about going after it and use this to help become a reality. Right. So I'm not trying to sell you this because it's just a cool thing we get to do on a Thursday afternoon. So that being said, just checking something. I'm just looking at time here. One other piece I want to bring up here. When we harmonize our intentions to that thing that we really want to attract, the path gets revealed. That's kind of what we're doing. We talked about this traction element. Remember, we talked about distraction being off my path. Well, now look at this word attraction. That means to be drawn to one's path, or against or on one's path, like with one's path. So when we constantly tune in this way, that path of action gets revealed. And that's where we usually get tripped up, is when we freaking get off our path that we need to be on. We don't know what actions we want to take, right? So we can think of this law of attraction and this entire element actually as like a universal GPS, right? We got to find our destination. And that's that thing that we're separate from in this moment, right? We have this illusion of separation from. And then we have to figure out where we are, right? And go to where we are. And then when we actually do this process, it's going to unfold a route for us, just like a GPS would in our car, right? Putting two addresses in. Where do I want to go? Where am I now? And then a route appears for us. So this loop really allows us to do that. So one final thing before we sit and do this, scripture. You know, there's so much scripture that supports the law of attraction that, like, I'm baffled that there's Christians that will be like, that new age stuff is the work of the devil. Like, if we look at the scripture, it is all over the place. What we've talked about in these laws, I've illustrated in every single one of them in the previous ones, and I guess I did even with compensation today, right? So, so let's just hear a little bit of scripture. So we're going to look at Matthew 21:22. All things whatsoever you shall ask for in prayer, believing you shall receive. We also have ask and it shall be given to you, seek and you shall find, knock and it shall be opened unto you. Again, Matthew. The kingdom of heaven is within you. Why are we looking within us? What's inside of us? Kingdom of heaven, the source that I'm talking about, right? I and my Father are one, divine oneness, right? And that attraction, as I'm talking about frequency, becoming it. I must become it. If thou can believe, all things are possible to him that believes. As a man thinks in his heart, so is he, right? So that's the difference between that egoic, right? We talk about this, think in the egoic side. Do not conform to the pattern of the world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, right? So don't worry about Caesar's world. How are you going to transform? This is a spiritual journey, even though we're having a physical experience. So according to your faith, it shall be done to you. Fix your eyes on not what is seen, but what is unseen, since what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal. Give, and it will be given to you. Good measure, pressed down. That's actually just, it's a longer version of it. But I think you get the gist. I hope you get the gist. We could really, really go on with this in scripture. It's there. We're all pointing to the same thing. I don't know who's trying to say we're not. I just don't know why we're trying to get fractured, because we're not. I mean, we are, because we're separate, but just quick look at this comment before we go into connecting these 7 together and how we're going to do that. I like the idea of how time plays into a deeper understanding of the law of attraction, opening up our consciousness to the idea that the version of ourselves that we are aligning to already exists, almost like reverse engineering the product. It's exactly what it is doing. We are reversing engineering. We have to become it on some level within, right? If we look at the law of correspondence, as within, so without. So we have to really become it. It's not this thing that we have to wait to acquire. We have to become it. But how do we do that? Well, we look at these laws, and then there's another 7 laws after this that we're not even covering here. But those are more ancillary. Those are more, how do we speed up this process? Like, one is the law of gestation. Like, why does it take so long for something to be created? So we can possibly do those ones on a separate thing. I have a whole video series for those of you that want that. Actually, the link's in the description, I think. So, any case, we really are becoming it. It's a matter of becomingness, and if we can get that part right, then everything flows from there. And that's what comes with 100% responsibility. We can't become anything if we're busy blaming the outside world for what's happening to us. The responsibility and the projection, all that stuff. That's why we had to clear up all this stuff. And this stuff is just what was in the social memory complex. So it's how our culture developed. And for whatever reason, it doesn't really matter right now, we have a way to undo it. And this is your way of undoing it if you haven't undone it already. And then putting it in, instead of Caesar's words and the schooling and all the indoctrination that we've gotten to go through, this is just for you to be able to tap into your source. So you have your own inner guidance. I'm not telling you what to do or how to do it. I'm just sharing with you what I'm doing, walking you through what I'm doing and how I connect to it. So you're going to have your own unique nuance and get whatever it is that's that you're meant to get out of it, right? Whatever you're willing to get out of it. So with that all being said, take some water. We're going to go through this as a guided meditation. Yeah, somebody popped in social memory complex, the law of one. Yeah. Hey, law of one we could do a whole series on how law of one and the seven densities align with this or the Bible. Like it's just so incredibly amazing how similar these concepts are. And when we look at them and what's written in these different places, is like these aren't different belief sets. They're the same belief set with some perverted pieces by some, I don't want to say perverted, some misused pieces by some men with egos, the same thing that's been done with the law. So we don't need that. The kingdom of heaven is within. It's within you. And you already know that. That's why you're here and you just want more of it. But we are here to really change that social memory complex, like the collective belief sets, right? That's another way of looking at it, the cultural belief sets. So we can actually create beauty all over the world, which there's so much of it already. So that being said, let's just adjust your body. Maybe you want to draw back to that initial intention that we set at the very beginning of this. If you need to stretch or move, this is the time to do it. Okay. Once you get yourself situated, sitting up, straighten that back, drop the shoulders, relax the jaw, make any final adjustments, and just take an inhalation through the nose, filling your belly. And then just exhale out all the air, let everything out, and then fill in again with the belly when you're ready. And you can go at your own pace here or follow exactly what I'm saying. You hear the birds in the background, enjoy it. Just begin to come centered and at peace if you're not already. Begin to breathe in through your nose, and as the air comes in through your nose, visualize the light coming up through the sinus passages, up into the third eye. Hold it there at the top of your breath and let it go. Again, breathing into the third eye. Filling it with light and letting go. And again, filling the eye, third eye with light, breathing in. And if you notice this gravitating down to your heart or another part of your body, just allow it to continue to fill up, come through the third eye and continue to come down and fill up your heart as you breathe. And just really connect to that sense of light within. Fill the whole body with light. And I want you to think of a situation, something that's going on in life right now, where you might have a choice to make. Or you might have an action to take that you don't have clarity, or maybe you think you even have clarity about it. We're going to take another look. And once you have that situation or that thing in mind, just start to get more detailed with it. Who are you with? What do you see? What do you hear? Continue to make it real in your mind. What are you wearing? Where are you? Can you smell anything? Can you feel anything physically, emotionally, or mentally? And think about that reason why this is so important to you, whatever this thing that came to your mind. You could choose an infinite number of things. What is the outcome that you'd like to see? Not even just what are the choices, like what is the outcome of the choices, what you really would like to create in your reality. And how would you describe that feeling? Would you describe it as excitement or relief, inspiration, whatever it might be? Just get a really great picture of your destination point on your GPS. And just realize you're living the future right here, right now, in your mind's eye. So if there's anything that you would like changed about it, now is the opportunity. Because when we bring this back to where we are, to our source, and make a connection, a path to it's going to be revealed. So we want to make sure we're going exactly where we want to go. So continue to fill in any details, any upgrades. If there's a conversation that needs to be had, how does the conversation go? I say this, then they say that, then I say this. I say this, they say that, right? I know that's going to happen. So think about how you want that flow to be. You don't have to have the answers of what you say or they say, but start opening up to that possibility right now, because as we come back to our breath, we're going to start returning to source. So hold that idea, that feeling, that intention in your mind very clearly. And then return to your breath. Breathe in light to that idea. Bring it in light to your mind, to your heart, to that connection. And then just take an honest look. Where am I in relation to that thing right now? What is the difference? What are the gaps? What are the doubts? If there's any doubts, these are things for me to go back and clean up my inner world on. And if there's no doubts and there's no concerns and there's no issues, and maybe even just imagine for a moment, just take note of whatever doubts or concerns or issues. Like this is good information. It's really good information for us to have. This is part of our path. Each one of those doubts is an obstacle that we are creating on our own path. So it's really good to know what we're literally putting ourselves up against as a figment of our imagination right here and right now. And it might be really real in the real world, but right now, what comes up? Those are things in my mind that are things that I'm going to overcome. They're just illusions at this point. So check what those are. And now if all those things are overcome, we're just going to imagine that all those things are overcome and we return to our breath. And look at where we are. And just see a clear road to our destination. What vibe do I need to be in when I go out into the world in order to make this my reality? Get very, very clear what that vibe is, set an intention. And if you don't know, guess one. Your intuition will probably have you right or close to right. And we'll be using the rest of the feedback loop to see where that might need some adjustment. So return to your breath. Become very clear on what it is that you want again. And where you are right now, and visualize the path. What things can you do immediately, here and now? And with what vibration are you going to do them? What are some of the actions you could take? Now imagine yourself taking those actions. They're already taken. You do all those things. What is the feeling? What are you left with? What is the law of correspondence bringing up in you? And mark these things down. You can make substantial change. You can see everything that you need to do, or at least the next stage of it. And then return to your breath. Breathing into the nose, filling with light, and exhaling. Who are you being? Who are you going to be? Who are you going to show up as in the world? And if any chatter comes up in this process, use this feedback loop and set into who it is that you choose to be and what actions you're willing to take to make your new reality exactly how you desire to become it. How do you walk when this is a reality? How do you talk when this is a reality? And now ask, what would I have to give? What could I give to have the counterbalance, the law of compensation, actually deliver back to me what it is that I desire so much as I become one with it. And just mark some of these things down in your mind. A lot probably came in. Don't have to remember it all. It's in the subconscious, it's in the ethers. And again, we return to our breath. And just see it as done. See it as you be it. I see it as I be it. Say that a few times to yourself. I see it as I be it. I see exactly how I'm standing, how I'm talking, how I'm moving, how I'm behaving, what actions I'm taking. The entire process. I see how conflict may come up, and I see how I'm going to take responsibility and resolve it immediately. And I'm going to move forward and become and be as I am it right here and right now from this moment forward. Just breathe into that. And exhale. And when you are ready, and come back into your body, rub your hands together, just kind of come back physically, and just, if you're taking notes, like write down all the action steps that came to your mind. Write down all the doubts and the concerns that came to your mind. These are the things that you need to look at to get to the next place. These are the things you need to do to get to the next place. So, this is how I found that I can use the first 7 laws of the universe to really make my life flow. Like, I don't want for really anything. It's really freaking good. And as long as I stay in tune to this, then I don't create messes. And as soon as I create messes, I go back to this. Like I have to go to this formula. As soon as there's an issue in my life, I'm like, okay, how did I create this? And I use this feedback loop, and I use this meditation, but I do it like that. Like we can do it very quickly. Here we kind of drag it out, but it's a process that your mind works so quickly. The more you practice it, it will begin. Instead of doing it for 10 minutes, it will be 30 seconds, 10 seconds, so forth. So this made my life better. I hope you try it. I hope it works for you. I would love to hear about your experience just now or up until now or anything with this. If there's any questions, now would be a great time to drop them in. And thank you for joining. Thank you, Brendon. Are you coming back on to say goodbye to everybody?
Yes, sir. I'm here with our special guest producer today. So well, awesome. That was wonderful, man. Thank you for, again, the presentation, the meditation. Really enjoyed that. And I think something like that, like even for myself, there's a lot of key points during the presentation. Sorry, do you want to close your screen share, and then that way we'll just kind of
yeah.
There's a lot of stuff during the presentation that were just like good reminders for me, and I'm sure a lot of people, because we go through this life, and challenges are a part of this life, but how we choose to respond to those challenges is always like the conscious choice. And I think oftentimes, like especially with a lot of people in today's day and age, there's so many stressors, whether it just be like family, societal, financial, all of those things, that it's easy to just kind of click into like survival mode, and then you're just kind of like immediately looking for like the what do I gotta do, how do I feed the family, what do I gotta do, sort of thing. And not to say that isn't the way, but like I think even before we move into those actions, to take something like that meditation to just kind of like reorient ourselves and realign ourselves, and then from there maybe we'll notice that maybe there's actually like a few more choices that will open up, something that in our reactive mode we don't always see. But when we kind of, like you said, kind of what you're talking about, like really practice kind of listening to source, and going back to what we were talking about of kind of like knowing that what we're moving towards already exists. So I think even for people who kind of like who are really into metaphysics and spirituality and everything like that, sometimes it can kind of get away from us. And I think having it as a practice and having a community to be reminded of that is very important. You know, kind of like brushing your teeth and taking a shower, doing a simple meditation like that, even if it's literally just 10 minutes in the morning to meditate on, visualize how you want your day to be. It can totally, you know, it's like sharpening your sword or tuning your instrument for the day. It makes a big difference.
100%, 100%. Like I say we, but I know it's just me. Like the way I perceive things, the way I got taught things and how to do things was like to not listen to any of this information. And it was to follow a system that was developed by somebody that was not me. And I'm supposed to trust them more and their system more than myself. And that's the funny thing is, like, if we start doing that, then we kind of lose touch with ourselves. At least that's what I found happen. But now, like, this isn't even necessarily a practice for me. Like, this is my way of being. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to take any action without stopping and doing this. And if I do, then this comes up as soon as there's anything that doesn't seem like it's going smooth. Mm-hmm. Right? I'm like, oh, wait a second, where did I create this? And it prevents me from going down and making bigger messes, because as we take on more responsibility, and as we get like everything, like more wealth, like money's a magnifier. So with money, like if you're an asshole, you're just a bigger asshole. But if you're like a nice, generous person, you can be a bigger, generous person, right? So we don't want to create problems until we resolve our inner issues, and we don't want to get abundance until we resolve those, because we might create bigger problems that we have to clean up later, which I got plenty of experience doing. So thank you so many people for showing up here, and all the comments. I really appreciate it. And thank you for having me here, Brendon. Thanks. Please thank Neil for me, and great to see you, brother. You got anything else for me?
Of course. I know there's a question that just came in the chat from Gloria, and again, like I was gonna just throw in a question, but I guess we'll wrap it up in the next like 5 minutes. I'm sure we got a couple of things we got to take care of. Yeah. My general question, this might be for something you can tie in for Gloria, just like what are some kind of what are some other ways we can just kind of practice like listening to source? I guess kind of like getting back into that heart space, and kind of taking that opportunity to kind of like really what the meditation was about, but really just kind of like listen to what it is that we're aligning with and what it is that we want, and remembering our why. And then if you can see Gloria's question, feel free to read that. And again, maybe it can be in the same answer. Sorry, buddy, that's bright.
Yeah. So, what would help for a mature senior who has not been able to work past 3 years? Okay. So right there, like I see the first thing is like COVID, right? And it can't work because of COVID, and the mature senior. So it doesn't matter if you're a mature senior or you're a teenager. Like in my perspective, like you are capable of doing all of this stuff that we just did here, and taking any action that you desire to take. You just have to get into the vibration of doing it. And we can't point to anything, COVID, my mother, my sister, my boss, my right toe, my age, my height, as a reason why I am where I am. We can only point to ourselves. So if we do that, when we do that, then it's like, okay, it's not that I can't work due to COVID. I can't do what I used to do, right? This thing changed my trajectory. Now I have to do something else. And what is that thing? And what would actually be good for me? Like, actually, maybe it's the best thing that ever happened to me before. I just didn't see it because I was too busy being frustrated about it to realize that actually this was the opportunity for me to actually explore something new. And that, that even happened with us in your Ibble stuff, like that happened with you and I, Brendon, like where it was like, and then that's happened so many times in my life where it's like, I think I'm going down this trajectory and something comes in and knocks me off path. And I'm like, and that's actually why we didn't stay on the same path together as much as we were, because I had something that came and railroaded me like, oh my gosh, I got to do this. I got to take care of this. And I didn't blame that thing or the community or what was going on in the world as a result. Instead, it was like, okay, this is just I'm completely uprooting my family, and I'm taking all my energy that was focused towards this other stuff, and now I'm looking over here with it. So find the opportunity in that. How many other people are in a similar situation? And if you find the opportunity that's been created for you, Gloria, then you're going to be able to help everybody around you as well that's probably in a similar situation. So the praying and the meditating is wonderful and trusting, but then there is the action, right? So that was kind of the big piece about this 7 laws, was there's that in between the source and the attraction element. Everything that happens in between is actually what brings those two together. So what are the actions? What is something you could do right now? Could you go on Upwork? Could you go? So I don't want to get into it too deep, but that's how I would respond to Gloria. And did that answer your question as well? Because I kind of
I mean, I think my question is almost like a whole nother presentation in its own way, but not a problem there. But one thing I did want to reply to is that, you know, what you were saying there, this kind of reminds me of something that I used to say to myself, like way back when I was kind of starting my awakening, and this idea of like meet the universe halfway. You know, like that because we are that part of the universe. Like we're manifesting from both ends. You know, we can put forth this intention, put forth our dreams, put forth this, but you know, it's like if we're not willing to catch that boomerang when it's coming back to us, you know, like it's not going to fully manifest. So it's like, what can we do where it's like we're seeing the visions, we're aligning with it, we're doing that, but like you said, it's the action. Like we are the Fibonacci sequence in a physical form. And as much as it exists within the consciousness and the thoughts and the ether, it exists through our bodies. It exists through our actions as well. And yeah, I think out of this presentation, even the first 2 episodes and today as well, I think a message that I take from this, and for everybody here, I'd love to hear, you know, what are some of your takeaways from today's presentation, or even the full presentation, is just reminding ourselves of how adaptable we are, of how versatile we are, of how flexible we are. Again, you know, kind of like the vine kind of like spiraling its way up and everything like that. It really reminds me that, you know, like even in the times where we are challenged, it's also giving us this opportunity to perhaps tap into a deeper strength. You know, if we were just playing the video game on easy mode the entire time, we would never truly level up. And sometimes we're just like, yeah, I'm ready to play it on easy mode. But then the universe is just like, but there's more inside of you that I want you to see first. And then you can get to the grace, you know, and then to even like incorporate the grace into the challenge, into the hard part. So, you know, I think it's the universe, again, it's not, a friend said this to me once, and it really stuck with me. The universe isn't necessarily here to quote unquote make you happy. It's here to evolve your consciousness. So when you're in those moments where sometimes something happens, you're just like, damn you, universe, like, why are you out to get me? But at the same time, it's like, or, you know, like, how is this creating the space to evolve my consciousness? But at the same time, it's not just going to evolve your consciousness purely by happenstance. It's going to take a conscious effort. Like that's the thing that makes us humans unique, is that our consciousness is something that it gets to a certain point where it's our will that will propel it forward. It's our awareness that will propel it forward. So yeah, just some thoughts off the top of my head there. But yeah, thanks again, Iain.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, as you were telling me that, or sharing that, which I completely agree. I also remembered your question about how can we be more connected, right? And I think, or what can we do to be more connected? I just want to touch on it because it is a whole topic that we could have, but the reality is we're always connected. It's whether we're aware of it or not, right? And the only time we're not aware of it is because we have our attention focused elsewhere. And then when we have shit go wrong, then we have our doubts come up. Like, is this, you know, what's going on? Like you just mentioned there. But that, like, the doubts that come up are actually the proof of why I should have faith. And the doubts that come up are actually the illusions that I'm putting between me and what I want. So they're actually the key pieces of information. So love those doubts, love those concerns, love those issues. Like if you're a salesperson, one of the first things you learn in sales, I did phone sales, is you want to love objections. You want every objection the person has. You want them to say no to you immediately, because as soon as they say no to you, you can find out why. And then you can start to see what you're dealing with, right? So the objections, the doubts, the concerns, they're gold unless you let them paralyze you.
Absolutely.
But they are your connection.
Yeah, no, that's a great reminder. Like we are always connected. And then yeah, again, I think in little ways, just kind of taking those extra moments of our day to kind of like slow down. Like it's amazing how many excuses we'll make to just go entire weeks without meditating sometimes. And then like as soon as you do, you're just like, oh yeah, like this is important, like this is meaningful and everything like that. So it's like I love the idea of what you were doing, the simple practice of kind of like using our imagination to visualize what it is that we're moving towards, and then kind of like breathing light into it, like that as an image, as kind of a practice. It's a cool idea, but I think on a deeper metaphysical level, that's actually moving energy. Like we're conducting energy when we do that. Our breath is actually like almost like watering that idea in a sense. So it's not just something where it's, oh, this is going to make me feel good and remind me. It's like, what if on a deeper metaphysical level, you're actually like sending, like you're strengthening that connection every time you take like 10 minutes to actually do that. And if you were to, if someone were to say like, hey, like scientifically, if you take 10 minutes to do that each day, it will yield results. And if someone were to like give you a document to say, hey, that's scientifically proven, I bet more people would be like, oh, okay, now I'm going to do it. Right. But again, it's kind of like the faith and the trust. And I think it's a deeper knowing too.
And it doesn't, but it might not work the same, because then the faith is again based on
there you go, yeah,
instead of the faith based on myself. And that's what my whole belief is, that we all have to believe in ourselves 100%.
Yeah.
Right. And if I know you believe in yourself, then I trust you.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're trusting yourself. But if you don't believe in yourself, you're not trustworthy, because you don't even trust yourself.
Mm.
Or I could make it the I, like if I don't believe in myself, like please don't trust me. If I don't trust myself, don't trust me, because I don't even trust myself. Right. So these things are kind of become interlinked here. And it really is about like realizing that we are always connected. Like it's not like just something you say. Like as this stuff is practiced, it becomes so much easier to know exactly how to move next. And even in these visualizations, like here, it's funny because I'm doing it and I'm like, I have no idea what other people are experiencing, but I know I've been doing it for so long that I work out all my scenarios before I go into a phone call, like a business meeting. I know exactly what I want at the end of it. I know exactly how I'm going to get it. I've visualized it. I've actually had the conversation with the person myself in this visualization and got to hear their objections, and then like realize like, wait, why am I even framing it like this? That's me being insecure about this. Like he's not going to care about that, but if I say something, he's going to start caring about that. So I shouldn't say that. Like little things like that become really obvious, and the whole method of communication changes. And we create a story. That's what we're doing here with our mouths. We're creating a story. We're here to witness. We're here to witness and create this beautiful story. Well, we can create whatever kind of story. What kind of story do you want to create for God? Me, I want to create a beautiful one with my family. What about you?
Right. Yeah. No, honestly, even yesterday, Lacey and I, we were talking about it, and she was just kind of like really reminding me. She's like, Brendon, like you're a storyteller, like that's something that you've always done, and it's something that will continue to be like a core part of your strengths. And I think as a storyteller, I think the story I want to tell is just like inviting all of us to really reflect on, well, what story do we want to tell? So let's tell an epic story. Let's tell, it's the hero's journey over and over and over again. Iain, it's been awesome talking to you, dude. I know both of us probably got some family stuff to be able to attend to, so I'm ready to wrap this up if you are. And I know there were some comments of gratitude in the chat, and anybody else who just wants to leave some comments and thank yous, please do. Leanna says, thank you so much for this wonderful presentation. Just at the time I need it most. We need to relearn how to reconnect with ourselves, because we've been educated away from our own inner strength. Thank you, Leanna, in the YouTube. And again, anybody else just taking the time to be able to listen to this, just thank you for your attention. And I know synchronistically it is going to be something even for myself where people are going to be like, oh, this is, I heard this right at the right time. And it'll be something that this will be a conversation that will continue. And we hope that you can continue this conversation with people in your relations as well. So I'll just say real quick, and then we'll pass it back over to Iain. For anybody here, encouraging guys to connect further with Iain on Instagram at My Evolved Life and Iain Grae, and the links for that are in the YouTube info, and as well on his Sam Cart for his transformational courses. Iain, back to you.
Yeah. So Yeah, everybody, thank you for coming, spending the time with me today. And if there's, reach out to me. I'm not like, I don't hide. So feel free to reach out, DM me if you have any questions or anything comes up later. And if you want to come hang out with me doing something entirely different, I'm reopening my racetrack in Texas doing motocross. And it's pretty cool because it's like it's a vehicle for me to be able to actually share this information with people that never would have been exposed to it. So it's pretty cool. I would love to have you guys come out to that if you're ever in San Antonio. Come hang out with me. Or if you're in Costa Rica, I might be back here at that time. But thank you guys all so much for joining. Thank you, Brendon. So good to see you with the baby getting big, man.
He's getting big, man. It's getting heavy too. Keeping me strong.
Just wait, bro. Just wait.
Just wait, man.
Awesome.
Absolutely. Cool. All right. Thank you guys again so much. Stay tuned more for Portal to Ascension. If you guys want to connect with me, you can find me on Instagram at Mystic Spider-Man and Skull Babylon on YouTube. And yeah, stay tuned for more awesome stuff coming your way through Portal to Ascension. We'll see you guys later. Have a beautiful rest of your day and happy manifesting and happy aligning. Talk to you guys later.